Let's talk about the connection between Angel and Tengen. And shout out to Rashid for asking me this because I actually have a lot of thoughts on this subject. But if you're not caught up on the JJK manga, spoilers beware. All right, so before we get to talking about Angel, we need to kind of lay the groundwork with another theory that I have where Sukuna may be Tengen's child. So if you're interested in that theory and how I kind of unpack it, check out this video. This is the thumbnail, but I'll also link it down below in the YouTube comments if you're watching on that platform. But I think that could shed some interesting light on this whole Angel situation. So we're starting there, that Sukuna may be Tengen's son. Okay, so now let's talk about Angel. Incarnated sorcerer from 1,000 years back, has massive beef with Sukuna, and even fought him back during the Heian era, right? And the name Angel clearly has some religious implications, but not only that, the character design is just right there in your face, right? A literal halo, angel wings, plays a trumpet, has the ability called Jacob's Ladder. I mean, Gege is really getting right in our face with this religious stuff, and specifically biblical stuff, right? Now, Gege has never been one to kind of do something like that directly, so I think there's a little more than meets the eye here, and we're not supposed to assume that Angel is literally a biblical angel, right? There's just a clear theme, but it's not literal. Like, most of Gege's stuff is a little more subtle than that, right? So what can we glean from this? And on top of that, actually, I even forgot to mention the fact that she calls Sukuna the Fallen One, which is a clear allusion to Lucifer, right? So again, all of these just straight in-your-face biblical allusions, and yet I don't think the point Gege is making here is that Angel is literally an angel. So what's actually going on then? So what else do we know about Angel? Well, in addition to hating Sukuna, they've actually got beef with all of the incarnated sorcerers because they are suppressing the vessel's original owner, and she thinks that goes against God's laws, so it's wrong. And Megami says, "God?" And Angel replies, "That's just a name I give to my beliefs. Pay it no mind," which is extremely sus in my opinion. And again, we have all of these religious and biblical allusions straight in our face. But as I said, Angel is clearly not a literal angel. Sukuna is not literally Lucifer, even though he's referred to as the fallen one. So if this God is not the literal biblical God, then who might she actually be referring to? And that's where Tengen comes in, somebody who was literally viewed as a deity, and in fact, cults and religions sprung up around Tengen. So could Angel view Tengen as her god, and everything Angel does is in service to that god? Now, one of the most interesting questions surrounding Angel is why would they have agreed to become an incarnated sorcerer when they view those as abominations? Now, granted, Angel didn't fully take over and suppress Hannah in the same way the other Culling Games players took over their vessels, so maybe it's not as bad, but still, you would think that Angel would have massive moral qualms with that, and yet she did it. Right? And not only that, she made a deal with Kenjaku to do it, the one responsible for all of the rest of the incarnated sorcerers, which she views as an abomination. So surely she would view the person who is responsible for that as an abomination as well, right? And yet Angel made a deal with him. And that merely makes me wonder what the dynamics of the Tengen, Kenjaku, and Angel relationship were 1,000 years ago, because we do have Kenjaku refer to Tengen as his friend. But can we take that at face value? I don't know. Were they like actual friends in the way that we would consider the use of the word friend, or is Kenjaku being a little bit tongue-in-cheek here? Is it just from his perspective that they were friends? We really don't know, but in any case, it's possible the dynamics were a bit different than they were today, and so maybe Angel trusted Kenjaku a little bit more, or maybe it was just a deal with the devil because what needed to get done needed to get done. And so what was so urgent that Angel would make such a deal? And it draws back to Sukuna, right? The fallen one. And this is where Sukuna potentially being Tengen's child comes into play, because if he does share this parallel with Lucifer, the fallen one, Satan from the Bible, you got to remember that Lucifer was once an angel himself, the most beautiful of all of them, right? Except he fell from grace and became enemy number one. Sukuna, similarly, if he was Tengen's child, would have been viewed by all of Tengen's, religious followers as the chosen one, the one that should follow in the footsteps and, kind of continue on the same path as the deity, Tengen, right? But instead of being, the Jesus Christ parallel, Sukuna instead became the Anakin Skywalker parallel and turned to the dark side, going against everything that the followers of Tengen would have believed. And where this all gets really interesting is when we tie the Star Religious Group, aka the Time Vessel Association, into this. If you don't recall, they were one of the organizations back in Hidden Inventory that were trying to kill Riko Amanai because they didn't want Tengen to merge with her, because they view Tengen as their deity. They're like a religious cult, and they think that Tengen became impure by merging with somebody else. Does that sound familiar? The same viewpoint that Angel has on incarnated sorcerers. It's an abomination. So maybe Angel was one of the very first members of this religious cult, the Star Religious Group, which again existed 1,000 years ago, back when Tengen was first, becoming prominent as this deific figure. There's a lot of moving parts to this, and I'm not saying it holds a ton of water, but it at least makes sense on a surface level to me, so it's fun to kind of theorize about. And if this is true, I'm not saying that Tengen is out there like giving orders to Angel, and in fact, I would assume quite the opposite. Tengen is a recluse, seems to just want to be left alone, maintain the barriers, set up Jujutsu Society, what have you. If anything, I think Angel is just kind of a religious cultist that, again, worships Tengen and thinks that this is what would be for the best. This is, maybe what Tengen would want. And so that's why they have such a beef with Sukuna and are trying to correct this wrong rather than having been ordered to do it or anything like that. Anyways, get back to the question here. The long and the short of it is, what if Angel's god is Tengen? I think that would be absolutely fascinating, and I would love to hear y'all's thoughts down in the comments. Also going to tackle a couple of other quick questions, starting with this one from Edwin, who wants to know if I think this panel will come into play, which is the one where Ui is basically saying, you don't necessarily even know who I've swapped because you can't really tell, right? So could this be setting up some sort of reveal where we find out people aren't in the bodies we thought they were? And I think this is certainly possible, like for sure. But as of right now, I don't have any lingering thoughts of like, ooh, I bet, secretly Gojo's been in Yuji's body the whole time. So I don't have any like thing concrete to give you in that direction, but I do certainly think it's possible. And I think Ui's technique could still come in clutch before the story is over, like unrelated to like this specific reveal that you're talking about, but just in general. And I think I've talked about it a little bit in some of the, Gojo Yuta theories we've talked about the past couple of weeks. But in any case, keep your eye on this lad. He's definitely important and, basically has been the MVP. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got even more from him. And then Edwin also asked if Nobara used resonance on Sukuna, could that affect Yuji? And I think 100%. This is something else I've talked about in previous videos. I don't remember exactly where, but I thought that would be extremely poetic if one of the ways Yuji like ultimately went out was like a self-sacrificial play to take on Sukuna along with him. And given what we know about soul resonance, it does seem to track that if Nobara used that on either Yuji or Sukuna, that it might affect the other as well. And finally, we got this one from Aaron, who asks, what if the goat Junpei never died? And when I tell you, I wake up every damn morning and ask myself that same thing. Wouldn't the sun shine just a little bit brighter? Wouldn't the birds sing just a little bit more beautifully? Wouldn't life just be sweeter? I guess we'll never know.